Hello. Before we start our session of coding today, I thought I would announce that I have made all the files that we've developed so far available on Google Drive, and I now provide a link to that in the description. So if we go to our YouTube page, and this is the current video that we're working on. If you look down below in the descriptions here, you will see a link in blue on my screen. This is I'm running Firefox, so this is the way it looks in Firefox. Anyway, if you click on that link, it will take you to Google Drive, and you don't need to sign in or anything. All you need to do is click on the download icon in the upper right portion of the window, and when you do that, yes, it's downloaded. It should be in your downloads directory or wherever your downloads go. It will appear as a zip file. So I've just downloaded it. All right. And that's it. That's all you have to do. And now your files are in a zip file. So let's just close. Let's close this page. And if I look in my file folders, and I go to my downloads, which are here, okay, and then I look for Lazarus application, it's right here. It's been downloaded. If I open that archive, there are all the files in my downloads folder. All you have to do now is create a directory where you want to put these and do development from, and unpack this into that directory. And then when you bring up Lazarus, you just say existing project. I think it just says open project, and when you do that, it'll give you a file directory listing. You'll just select the directory where you've unzipped these files, and you're all set. Then you can start right off where we've left off. Okay, so that's I originally tried doing this using GitHub, and it's way too complicated. GitHub's fine if you're collaborating with a group of people and developing some large project. It may be fine, but I found it to be just ridiculously complex. So I've gone this route. It seems much easier. That's it. That's all I have. So let's move on to our session for today. Thank you. Okay, let's go back let's fire up Lazarus here. Okay, and this is where we left off in our last video. We had developed this user add functionality. We had written, let's go to the code. Just click this. You can do F12, I believe. You can do F12 to get to your source code. And the thing that we had written last was this random file IO group of functions. And I was reviewing the code after the last video, and I noticed that there was an error in it. So this is the random file write function, and I was reading down through it, and I don't know if you saw it when I was entering it. We're going down here to line, let's see, calculate the byte offset right there. It's in the open. Here it is. Okay. So we're right around line 142. That's where this comment is. And we go into this while, and we are incrementing itries and trying to open the file. And we do that max tries times, that's 10 times. And if we don't get it opened, we fail. And we send back an R file, a random file write value of -2 to indicate that we couldn't open the file. Anyway, we say, well, itries is less than I max tries. Well, I never set itries to a value before it's one of the problems with using a while. If this was a for loop, this wouldn't have happened. But we're not going to change it to a for loop. I'm too lazy. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to correct this, and itries is going to now be set equal to 0 at the beginning of the loop. And if I knew what I was doing here, I'd do that correctly. There we go. So itries. So yeah, so now it will start at 0 and it will increment up on each failure until it's a successful open. And when it's a successful open, it then drops out of the end at the end of the loop, which is right here, and then it does a test to see if the file handle is successful. In other words, if it's a -1, it was unsuccessful. If it's unsuccessful, it exits with this -2 code. Otherwise, it continues on and it calculates the offset and it does a seek and so on. Okay. Now that fix won't be in the code that's currently in the GitHub repository. That will be after today. Okay. Alrighty. And I will put a link to that in the description, to the GitHub repository. All right. Now, I've changed that, so I'll do a Control S and save that change that we just made. And we're going to go back to users add. And right here is the user add button click procedure. And what happens is when we click the user add button, we confirm that the user password and the confirming password are alike, and if they are, then we drop through and we set this. We then execute that function we created, which is password eval, and that tests to see that the text in the password that we've entered meets our rules for a valid password. All right, and then if the status coming back is equal to valid password, okay, then we clear the status panel at the bottom of the window, and now we move to storing a new password. That's not exactly right. Since we're adding a new user, one of the first things we're going to have to do is see if that user's already in the file. You can't have two users with the same username. So right here, we're going to have to test to see if the username already exists. Okay? So now how do we do that? So we go to the functions we wrote, which are in random file IO, and we're going to do a read. So here we do a read. Now a read does a whole bunch of things for us. You can just read and just give it record numbers and it will read them. And you don't have to do a file open. This handles the file open and it handles the file close all automatically. Okay? So in order to read a record out of the file, we pass it the name of the file, we give it the record number we want to read, and we give it a pointer to the buffer where we want the data to be read into, and then we give it the size of the record. In other words, how many bytes are going to go into that record. Okay? So that's, in order to use that function, we have to reference it in the program that we're using it from. So we got to go back here to users add, and here in implementation in our uses clause, we now have to add that reference to that Pascal file that contains the file IO functions in it. So in here, PQR, so we would put in here, right here, a comma, and we will add the unit R file IO. That will now make all those procedures and functions available to this code that we're currently writing. Okay? Now, we're going to put in, we need a record number. Now we use, I'll add this variable in here, and we'll call it we'll call it rec no for a record number, and it's an integer, right? And down here, we're going to have rec no. We're going to set it equal to 0. We're going to start at 0. And we're going to say while true. Now that is an infinite loop. Okay. While true, do begin. And if we have a begin, we must have an end. And that's the end of the while. And what are we doing? We're going to look for, we're going to read for a record, and then if we get a record back, we're going to then check to see if the user ID in the record, not user ID, the user name in the record matches the username that we've entered on the in this window. So what we need to do here is we need to add a buffer, and again we're going to use something we've already written. What we wrote, user record inc. I'll click on it here. You remember when we wrote this? It was I think in our last session together. It's a type. We created this type. It's called TUserRec. Okay, and we defined it as a packed record, and then we put all of these fields in it. Right? One of them was username. Okay, so we're going to need to use this type in our program. So let's go back to the user add unit, and up here in the top, we're going to include that definition file, userrec.inc, that include file. I think we can do that here. Well, we'll try it. Home. And now how do you include a file? So you use a curly brace and then a $sign, $sign, fat finger. You can just use I, that works, or you can use the word include. That works. And then you give it the file name, and that's userrec.inc, and closing curly brace. Now that will include the type. Okay. So down here in our function, we can include it here if we want. We can put in and we can call this anything really. We'll call it urec. Now we'll call it user rec. Let's do it. USR rec. There we go. And it's of type TUserRec, I think. Okay. The type is TUserRec. So that's what we will use. That's what's defined. So this is TUserRec. All right. So we've just defined our record. Okay. And down here we're going to be doing, so now we have our record, and we have the availability to those functions, so we can now use those functions. So that was a read is called R file read, right? So let's go back. So we're going to do an R file read. Now you'll notice, since we've referenced it, we've now included the in the uses clause, we've included the R file IO reference. It will now give us the prototype, and it tells us what it's expecting, right? So we've hard-coded, I think we've hard-coded the name, haven't we? Where did we do that? Is that in logon where we reference the name? Let's look there for a second and see. I think it's in maybe it's not. Unit logon. Oh, it's users dat right here. See, it says file, not file exists, so we have the app file path plus the directory separator and then plus users dat. So that we need that, right? So we need all this for the file name. Let's just copy that, Control C. And we'll come back over here to users add, and we will just stick that in here, shift insert, and there it is. So that's the first thing we need. Then we need the record number, which we've already supplied it. It's irec no, right? That's an integer. That's correct. So we'll put in irec no. And the next thing we need is the pointer to the buffer, and we've given buffer the name userrec. Okay. Now I think in order to reference it as a pointer, we need to do a caret and then say user rec, and I left that out. User rec. Let's wrap this onto the next line. There we go. And we need the size of the record that we're going to read. And so in order to get the size of something, you use this built-in function. You say size of, and then inside parentheses you give it the identifier. Well, the identifier is user rec. So we want to give it the size of user rec, and I believe that's it. Now, our file read returns a status. Okay. And we already have set up an integer called iStatus, so we will just use that. iStatus is equal to the result of this. Okay, I'm going to wrap it again. All right. So, this loop's infinite, right? We're going to stop if we get a bad status back. So, a good status for our read is 0, I believe. Let's take a look. We're in the read. And we didn't really comment it, did we? It's -1 if the file doesn't exist. It's -2 if the file open failed. It's a -3 if the seek fails. And then we get a read, and if it's less than 0, we exit. We should have had a file. Yeah, that's a seek failure. We don't have a read failure, do we? We got to do that. So that's another mistake I didn't catch the last time. So we'll have our file read will be set equal to -4, and we will say assume record read failure. There we go. We've added that. So we'll get a -4 if we have a read failure, and so finally if we have a successful read, we set it to 0. So 0 is successful. And I'm going to Control S and save that change. Come back over to users add. So we'll get this status back. So what's going to be in the user record file to begin with? We probably should clear that. Now we'll see. If we get a bad status back, then well, we're going to do that test. We have to test. We've read the record. If it's successful, so I'll say if iStatus is equal to 0, then we're going to do something. We should probably comment this following. So we'll say on read success test for duplicate user name. Okay. So status of 0 is a successful read. So then we will begin, and we will say if, now here's where our record comes in. We can say if user rec dot, and you'll notice we're getting our list of variables within the record, and we're going to be using the user name. So we'll say if, so now we'll say if user rec dot user name equals and what be equal to what? User edit username text, right? So it's edit user name text, right? Now let's just see if it comes up with the right thing here. Okay. Yes. Right here. Text. I got a robot in here that's trying to vacuum this room, so I'm gonna stop for a minute and kick it out. Here we go. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Now we're back. And we were testing to see if the record we've read is equal to the name in the record is equal to the name on our entered on our screen. And so if it is equal, we got a problem. So then we begin, and all right, and we ought to comment this line. What are we doing here? Is username in record equal to the username being added. Okay, and that's what this does. And if it is, what do we do? Okay, so we're going to have to output a message on in the window. So let's take a look at our window here. Look here. We have a panel down here, right? And it's called panel status. So we will have to put a message out, right? So let's go back to our code. And this is called panel status. So we will say panel status dot, and it's a caption, so it's EAP. Here we go. Caption is equal to, and now we're going to give it our response. Okay. Let's space this stuff out a little bit, make it a little prettier. Okay. We will say this username already exists. Okay. And what are we going to do after we do that? Then we're going to focus back on the user name, right? And that's edit user name right here. That's edit user name. Okay, so we will say in our code edit user name and we want to set focus, and then we will exit. right? Yes. And since we've started a begin, we must put in an end. Okay. Put in an end. Okay. All right. Otherwise, we're going to continue the loop. So what do? We have to increment I've got two ends here. What's this? Okay. Okay. Huh. Well, that's not right. This end, this is a superfluous end here. I'm going to get rid of that line. You just do a shift down arrow and then a delete, and that gets rid of that. Now, do our ends match up the way we want? Yes, this end matches with this begin. This end matches with this begin, and this one matches with this. So we're good. Properly nested here. Okay, so if we got a match, well then on the alternative is we didn't get a match. Right? Yeah, we didn't get a match. So if we don't get a match, what do? I guess we just don't care. We're going to let the loop continue. This is testing to see if we got a good status back. Okay, so if we don't get a successful read, then we never found the name. Basically, that's what that says. And so we would break. So we will break here. So we're going to say else break. That means break out of the while loop. Okay. And this is the end of the while loop. So let's just mark this with a comment. Let's just say this is the end of, and then come up here and indicate what this is the end of. Come down here and just stick that as a part of the comment in there. Okay. All right, so if we get out of the bottom of this loop, we can store. Anything else, in other words, if we find anything, it's going to output that error message in the panel. It's going to set focus back to the username, and then it's going to exit, which breaks us out of the loop. Exit takes us out, right? And we don't pass any statuses back or anything like that. We just output that error message. And it didn't store it. All right. Okay, so if we get to this point, we haven't found a matching username. So now we can go ahead and store this thing. And here's where we're going to have to do some work, some computations. So the first thing we need to do is we need to move the information on the screen into our record so we can store it. So how do we do that? It's pretty straightforward. So let's see, up here we declared user rec. So here where we're going to start moving. Okay, so I think let's do this. Move data from window access to the user record. We're going to say that. And it's just going to be a list of setting the variables in the record to the information on the window. So we're going to have user rec dot, and then it's going to give me my list, and it's going to say name. So I'll just use name, and that's going to be set equal to the information in the window, and that's edit username dot text. There we go. All right, and what's the next thing in the record? We got user rec dot access. See, we didn't set up an access. We're going to need to do that. I'm going to leave it blank for now. User rec. And now we're going to have the ID. Okay, and we're going to set that equal to something. And we have edit user ID in our entry window, so we'll use that. Enter user ID dot, and it's text. And okay, and we have user rec, and we'll see, we've had name. Oh, status, we got to set the status. So what is status? It's a character, and it's going to indicate let's see, what is that? Is that just a character? Is that right? Yeah, it's just a character, right? Okay. So this character is going to indicate whether the record is active, whether it's deleted, that kind of information. So we're just going to set it to active. So we'll just say that's equal to A. Now that brings up an interesting problem, because up here, when we're reading it, we're not checking to see if the records are deleted. So if we have a good read, we have to test for a couple things. So if status is equal to 0, that's one thing. And user rec dot stat equals A, then begin. So in other words, it's got to be an active record. If we marked it for deletion, let's say we put a D in there, then it's okay. We don't care what's in the record at that point. We just skip right over it and move on to the next. And which also brings up the next issue. We haven't incremented our record number in this while loop. We need to In other words, every cycle through, this IREC number needs to get incremented. So we need to do an increment IREC no. Okay. Now, could we have done that another way? Sure. We could have written out, IREC no equals IREC no plus 1. A little bit more typing. That's why increment IREC no, that built-in function, or it's not a function, it's a procedure. That built-in procedure is perfect. Okay. Okay, so we will just kill that. All right. Now that fixed that. We've moved the data into the record. All right, done that. Did we do all the fields? Let's see, we got name, access, ID, we gotta calculate an MD5. We gotta do message dialog algorithm 5 to compute that hash. Because we don't store the password in the record. So we've got user rec, and it's this one right here, and that's going to get set equal to something. Excuse me. And did I ever do anything with that? I think I did. Excuse me, I got a cough. I got my allergies still going. There. Okay. Up in our uses clause, we have to tell it that we're using the MD5 hash function. So up here in uses, I think, up here, way up here, we have to say comma MD5. All right? We're going to use that hash function. Alrighty. Now, we want the string. And you have to go in and look up all these. You have to go in and look up the MD5 unit to see what it does. Let's see, can we do that? Let's just go up here and hover on this. Do we get it? Oh, it's only looking in my stuff. That isn't very helpful, so I thought maybe I could just, can I go here? Yes, okay. So this is the MD5 file that's in the source, the free Pascal source library. It lets us look at that. So this is the actual code. So we have auxiliary functions, helper functions, raw functions, dedicated auxiliary functions, and I think these are the ones we're interested in. Okay. Is it update? I think it is. No, it's string. It's MD5 string. It's this one. Okay. MD5 string. You pass it the string that you want to compute the MD5 algorithm on, and it returns the digest. The digest is the hash code. And the hash code comes back as a hexadecimal, a large hexadecimal number. And then to get that number into something that you can use as a string, you then call the MD5 print function, and you pass it the digest number, and it returns a string. That's what we want to do, those two things. So, close that. And we're back at user add, and we're down here computing this thing, this MD5 thing. So what we want to do, first of all, we want to do MD5, and we want to calculate, based on a string, this number. So we pass it whatever we want to compute the MD5 on. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass it edit user ID, right? Is that right? Text, yes. And I'm going to pass it edit user password text. This is what we're going to calculate. Those two things, the user ID and the password, are going to get glued together. They're going to get concatenated, and that gets passed to the MD5 string function, which will calculate that long hash number on. And then we want to take that number that comes back, and we want to pass that to MD5, MD5 print. Right? Getting long, isn't it? It's going right off the edge of the page. I hate that. So what I'm probably going to do here is I'm just going to take this whole thing and bring it down on the next line like that. Now it fits. So we are computing that MD5. And since it's a characters, that will get, this will plug into that. All right. So we've moved everything into the record now. Now we can store it. All right. So we're going to append, since this is new, it doesn't exist, we're going to append it. Oh, we didn't put access in. And for now, I'm just going to give that a character. I'm going to say, I think access is a character, is it not? Yes, it's just a character. We're just going to say, I don't know. We'll call it U for user. He has user access. And it's hard-coded right now, but I think eventually we're going to want to change that. All right. Now we want to call one of our functions to write this record out. So we have file IO, and we have read, we have append. So we're going to append it. we're going to do an R file append. Okay? Yes. And what we do is we calculate the, we seek to the end of the file, right, from end, and then we write it. So that will append it. Okay. That's what we'll do. R file append. So let's go back to our code. We're actually going to write it now. So we're going to do R file append. We have to give it the name of the file again. I wonder if it remembered that. Control V. No. Okay. So we got to go back up and get the name of that file. It's right here. Control C. And Control V. There's our name of our file. And the next thing we're going to give it is the pointer to the record. I think that's a little circumflex character. And the name of the record, which is user rec, comma. And then we're going to give it the size of the record, which is size of user rec. Now, we also need, it returns a status, right? So we need to say istat is equal to whatever comes back here. Wrap this here. Get that fixed. So this is our status coming back. Right, and it's supposed to be status with a US on the end of it. Right? All right. And what if the status is bad? So if the status comes back bad, we'll say if iStatus is well, we could say not equal to 0. So if status is less than 0, then begin. And we're going to put our panel status, we'll say panel status dot caption is equal to, and then we're going to tell it user add file write, file append, failed. Tell it exactly what happened. Okay. And then what will we do? I guess we'll set focus. Darn it. And then we will set focus on what? We'll say edit user name, and we're going to set focus, and then we're going to exit. All right, that's what we're going to do. Not very helpful. I mean, it doesn't change anything on the screen. They could click the save or add button, whatever it is. Let's see, I forgot what we're doing there. The add button. They could click the add button again, try it again, and if that doesn't work, I guess they exit the screen and call for IT assistance. I guess that's what happens. Okay. So we've got quite a bit of code here. We can actually, I think we can compile this now and see if it's going to work. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. Okay. Well, let's compile it and see if there's any obvious errors here. Oh, it doesn't know what app file path is. Oh, yeah. App file path is determined at unit logon, and I don't pass it to this user add window. I'm gonna have to do that. So let's see. Users add is going to have to reference unit logon. It's going to have that in the uses clause. Yeah. Well, let's just stick it right in here. So we're going to say unit logon. See if that resolves it. So we will save that, and then we will compile again. Oh, it still doesn't know what app file path is. Let's look in unit logon. Ah, it's called share. What is shared application directory path? Where does share get set? I don't see share getting set. Do you? Publicly shared app directory path. If app path is blank, and that's it, there's no path established. Well, what if there is a path established? If not exists this, or this does not exist. Well, where did app file path get discovered? Ah, it got discovered down here. Okay, when the form was created, we looked for it, and then app file path got set to that string, which was labeled shares. So up here, it says if it's blank, or it does not, this does not exist, then use the back door. So if app file path exists, so I think what I need to do down here is say shares so right here what I need to do is say if the length of app file path is greater than 0, then what? Shares is is set equal to app file path. Okay. So shares is the thing we're looking for. And all this code down here, that all can go away. We don't need any of that anymore. Right? Okay. So shares. Oh, I have public app file path. Well, isn't that interesting? I have a public app file path. Oh, and that's part of form logon. Do I need share? I don't think I ever use it. Do I use share for anything? I mean, oh, and I called it shares, and it's share. That's wrong. It's actually share. And I'm thinking now that that's kind of redundant because I'm setting app file path. And app file path is public to the form. So app file path. Do I need to say the form name? I think maybe that's what I need to say. So I think what I need to put in there is this. Control C. And then go in here. Yeah, and I think what I need to do is Control V dot. There it is. Okay. And so what I'm going to do, because this line's getting long, I'm going to break it up further. Okay. So now I got the form. I think that fixes that problem. Let's save what we've got here. Control S. And let's recompile and see if it got rid of that bug. It did. Okay. Let's see. I guess you cannot use up arrow as the record pointer. What is a valid record pointer here? Let's see what we got. Do I have I have a cheat sheet here that I'm looking at with all kinds of Pascal stuff on it. Okay, pointer to a null terminate. No, that's not what I want. Pointer to. Yeah, the little caret in front is a pointer type. That should work. Is the caret? Yeah, the caret should be in the front. Yeah, that's a pointer. What does it say down here? It's hard to read. Syntax error. Oh, it's a syntax error. Why is it flagging that? maybe I'm not doing this right. String record number. It's record number. Record number pointer. Prec pointer. It's a pointer. It says error. A closing parenthesis was expected, but the identifier SR was found. Let's go back and look at our file read. Pointer. Prec. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I think I'm supposed to pass it address of. Oh, maybe that's the problem. Maybe this is supposed to be an @ sign. Maybe that's the problem. Let's save that. Control S. And try doing this again. Aha! There's no E in user. Not in this case. Yeah, the @ sign means at the, it's like saying at the address of this, which is a pointer. That was the problem here. All right. I wasn't passing the pointer to the buffer, the record buffer, properly. Okay. And I fixed this little spelling error here. So let's save that. Control S. And try compiling it again. Okay, it's not app file now. It's the name of the form. So got to go up. This is at line 93. It's FRM logon. Okay, so it's got to be FRM logon dot. There we go. All right. And it's going off the edge of the, this is this is column 72, I believe, right here. Yeah, let's, yeah, I think that's column 70. It's column 73 right here. So I like to keep my source code wrapped within the first 72 characters. So if you're ever printing a listing out and to look at, it doesn't run off the edge of the page. That's the only reason. So we'll wrap the line at this point here. Let's separate these out a little bit. Okay. And we'll wrap her here. And indent it plenty of spaces. All right. And again, this is wrong. I got to pass it an @ sign, not the caret symbol. So let's just fix that right away since we've identified that as a problem. Let's Control S and save that. let's try compiling one more time. We got a good compile. Now that doesn't mean everything's correct, but yeah. What could we do here? Let's use that panel status. Let's use the panel status thing. So when we store it, before we store it, let's write the MD5 into the panel status on the screen so we can see it. We'll make that just a temporary thing. So we just say panel status, is it status dot caption is equal to, and we'll just set it to this, I wonder if this will work, user rec dot user MD5. I'll see if that works. I'm leaving that sticking out to the left there so that it's easy to see it. I could put some space around it, I guess that might help. And let's say debug line follows. Okay, kind of highlight it here. Okay, we're back again. Yeah, so we're gonna make this kind of stick out like a sore thumb here so that it's easy to find. Do that. I mean, I could have just put we could have just set a breakpoint here and looked at it. Could do that too. So I mean, you can do it either way. Makes not a lot of difference, but this way we don't need to stop the program and go through all that junk. All right, so let's just let's run it. This will be interesting. We're still having to do this because we don't have the passwords working completely yet. Okay, and we're going to go to add. Okay, and let's do John Smith. John Smith. And his user ID is J Smith. And his password is going to have to be ABC _ 1 2 3. Will that pass? AB. Oh no, that won't pass. That's not going to pass. I want to get capital A, lowercase bc, underscore, and 1 2 3 4. I think that'll work. Capital A, lowercase bc, underscore, 1 2 3 4. Let's see if it will add it. It did. And this is the MD5 computation that appeared at the bottom in our panel. Okay. Alrighty. So we should have a file out there now. A user dat file with a record in it. Huh. And we can see a problem. It didn't clear the screen after the add. So that's a function we have to add. We're going to have to do that. Okay. Close all this. Done with that. So that debug line, we don't need that anymore. So I'll just comment that active part out. And we have this huge begin. It does all this stuff. So if we have a successful add, that's here. So if the status is bad, we output an error message. So we need an else. So right here, we're going to have else begin. And it put the end in for us, so we're good. And now we need to clear the screen. So all we have to do is now we say edit username dot. Yeah, it helps if you spell name correctly. Name dot, and that's text, is equal to nothing. Oops. And edit user ID text is nothing. And edit user password text is cleared. And what else do we have? Oh, confirm password. So edit confirm password text is nothing. And panel status, is it? Yeah, status dot caption is cleared. And where are we? We're going to focus. So we will do edit user name set focus, and that's it. And we'll just say exit. All right. Okay, so now let's save it, and let's compile for errors. We're clean. And now let's run it. And this time if I type in John Smith, come on. And now it's not letting me log in. It's not letting me log in. We do have a file that it's not letting me log in because it says this isn't a good username. Our program is starting to work the way it was intended. Yes, log on. Here we go. Now we're logging on, and it's saying, well, the file exists. it exists, and it's not saying logon failed. We're the end here. See this part. So this entire thing is handled when there is no user data file, and we don't have anything else happening. This is the end of that part. There's no established file path for this. Now we have to have, if there's a file established, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. So we're going to have to do our MD5 in here. I think we're going to close it for today. We've done pretty much a lot already. So I think what we're going to do is the next time we come back, we're going to flesh out the rest of this logon procedure so that it now reads the file, and you actually do a real logon. It actually uses the user dat file to log you on. So until then, I want to say thank you for watching this, and if you find the information here helpful, if you like it, click the like button, and if you want to see more of this kind of content, click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber. If you have comments, if you find little bugs in my code, or you want to make comments, please do. I would appreciate that very much. Until then, have a nice day.